Many thanks for staying with us, and of course, if you're just joining in, this is TMI reaching you live from our Lagos Network studio on the ITV network. I am Joshua Okata. Nigeria's current hardship is one that is marked by extreme high inflation rates, especially with food, a rising poverty situation where many, especially families, are struggling to meet basic needs. And the question is, for how long will they continue with this? To this end, we will be looking at the reaction made by a legal advisor, especially from the Northern Christian Association of Nigeria, in the person of Reverend Pam, who called on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to address the hardship and the insecurity facing Nigerians. But unfortunately, the question in the lips of Nigerians are, how will the president feel the pulse of the nation, one who barely stays in the country? Well, to have this conversation this morning with me, I am being joined by two personalities, one of which is joining us virtually from Lekki, Lagos, in the person of Bolaji Shote. She is a public affairs analyst. Good morning, Bolaji, and thank you so much for joining us. If you can hear me, thank you so much for joining us, Bolaji. Well, of course, I have right here sitting in person of Ubong Thompson. He is also a public affairs analyst. Good morning, Mr. Ubong, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, George.
All right, let me start with Ms. Bolaji, who is joining us virtually now. Nigeria's current situation is marked by extreme poverty, a situation where people barely meet their basic needs. I'm talking about food, shelter, clothing. All they save, as long as their income is concerned, is just to put bread on the table. They're not talking about their rent. They're not talking about school fees for those who have kids around them. But yet we have a president, as some say, that barely stays in the country. Today is in France, the next day is in Brazil. How can he feel the pulse of the nation? What's your take on that?
All right, thank you very much. Good morning. For me, to be very honest, I don't think that the president is in a position to he's not the one that is going to literally do all those things. He just needs people who are in place that can, connect with the population, that can feel what people are feeling, that can be on the streets, not there being a disconnect between the government and the people, because that way it seems as if they are not in sync with the everyday realities of people. Just yesterday I was on the road, and potholes, people were literally avoiding a part of the road just to go on another road, and that road is the government owns the road. I believe that they would have seen those things. Those are the realities that we're confronted with day to day, and you begin to ask yourself, okay, what's the government really doing about these things? You have huge potholes in front of the roads. The truth is, this while there's a belief that government has improved, inflation has come down by in July 2025, it was like 21.88, the lowest it has been since January 2023, even before this government came to power. But the real truth is that if these things are not, if the everyday man cannot see the impact in their life, if people cannot afford to eat, if people cannot afford the basic necessities of life, no matter what policies, no matter what the government says it is doing, people will not be able to relate. And I think that is the real bane of the matter. What government should start working towards ensuring that whatever policies, whoever is in charge of whatever in their different ministry, agencies and department, that there is accountability such that the common man can feel the impact of the government. I think that's my take.
You made a very salient point, especially in your earlier submission, where you said government of the day is completely disconnected from the people, which of course informs the reason why we see in some part of Lagos, surprisingly, people queue up for arms. Now, my question to you, Mr. Ibong, the Reverend also alluded to the fact that there is indeed hardship, aside the insecurity that is facing some Nigerians across the various regions of the country. And in his words, he said, whoever says there is no hardship is not speaking the truth. What's your take on this? How true is this statement?
My take, has to do with the reality on ground. We cannot run away from the facts and the figures that we have in ground. Good enough, the government has said I've made some gains in terms of, they talk about the inflation rate having dropped by 1% from 34 to 32.5, and then they talk about stability of the naira, the forex exchange, being stable at 1,530 to 1,550 or thereabout. They also talk about the building investors' confidence, because of the capitalization and the fiscal monetary value. Nigeria has had an external reserve of about $41 billion as we speak, having had recorded an increase. Then they also talk about, having built they talk about the banking, reforms, and having a stable banks in the country, which also drive investors' interest into the country. But the fact still lies that all these reforms, all the gains from the subsidy removal has not impacted into the ordinary Nigerians on the streets. So if the nothing personnel claim, Nigerians has not really feel the impact, is on the positive note, because we want the government to understand that the people is what matters in this all indices. Carrying out all the reforms, and yet people are still hunger. You have unemployment. Then little or no money coming into people for them to meet their basic needs. So it becomes a problem. But let's look at how all these things come about. It has started right from 1969, 1970. Fine, we had an oil boom then, but the failure of leadership to make judicious use of this oil boom has spontaneously affected the level of growth in Nigeria, and coupled with the election issues that the country is having, not able to conduct credible election, together with corruptions. And this has evolved from 1970, when we had the oil boom, that the fund would have been used to build infrastructure, that will take up any shock in the system. But you see them, taking this money, laundering these funds outside the country. And you see military takeover after 1983 election, and then subsequent General Buhari, Abacha, and then the Fourth Republic. And they have not been able to put things in place. So this hardship has evolved over time. And what we are facing today might not necessarily be blamed on President Tinubu all alone. It has been a failure of leadership. So it takes a pragmatic approach for the leaders of Nigeria to sit back and have realistic plans of how we are going to come out from this mess. It's very, very pathetic.
All right. Now, let me come back to you, Bolaji. if you listen carefully to what Mr. Obong said, he is not putting the blame entirely at the doorstep of the incumbent, administration led by Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He is saying that this has been a product of failed leadership, spanning close to 20 years, if I would put it that way. So what is your take as regards this? Because Bola Ahmed Tinubu, when he came in, in 2023, said he was well aware of the situation on ground. But how could it be that 2 years or thereabout into his administration, we are yet to see a proper change, as it were, in the area of the quality and lifestyle of people in the country? So are we now to shift that blame back to his predecessors, or what exactly are we to do at this point?
All right, thank you very much. For me, I think it's a collective responsibility. We the people, Nigerians, need to demand, or how would I say, need to join hands together to work with the leaders and forge a way ahead for the country, because at the end of the day, we are stakeholders. I always say this: no matter you are or go anywhere, you are still a Nigerian, and you can see the challenges that Nigerians are even facing in other countries. So I think we have to come to that level of truth to realize that we were not like this before. So how did we get here? We were not like this before as a people. We were not like this as a nation. And how did we get here? So I do not, I'm going to go with the school of thought that while leadership is responsible, is a collective responsibility of all. Because even in day-to-day living, it's not leaders that interact with people. You hear of a whole lot of other things that people do that has nothing to do with leadership. We need to go back and redefine ourselves. In a few weeks now, October 1, which will be about 65 years of us gaining independence, what have we been able to achieve? We need to also look for a bigger vision. We need transformational leaders who are going to, leadership needs to be made a big deal. And when we're talking about leadership, it's just not talking about people being in power. We need people who are performers, people who can impact lives, who are there for a purpose. We need someone to get us from a journey of where we are currently. We can't fold our arms and say, oh, this is how we're going to continue. We can't. It's like we're sitting on, like somebody would say, on a time bomb that it would eventually spiral out of something that, might not be able to control. At the end of the day, it affects everyone. So for me, I truly believe that it is a collective effort of the leadership, and we need to demand accountability from our leaders. We need to also pay attention more to government. A lot of the elites, people are not involved. People don't want to have anything to do with government because of the perception that, oh, they just do anything they want to do. Let them just do it the way they want to do. We need to change our mindset. It's a mindset shift, and it demands accountability from not just the leaders, but also the followers. At the end of the day, we need to ask ourselves, what do we believe in as a nation? How do we begin to drive this in every sphere of life, in the ministries, in the parastatals, in private sector, in government sector, everywhere? I think that is the only way we can actually make a headway as a people. It is not a leadership journey alone. It is more than what leadership is. It is a collective effort of both people and the government.
All right.
Thank you.
Now, let me shift my attention to you, Mr. Obong. If you listen to what Bolaji said, she said the whole bulk of the problem shouldn't be at the doorstep of the president. It's a collective. We should demand for accountability. Now, the Reverend in the person of Pam said something that there is a limit to how much a poor person can wait. In fact, in his words, he said, There is a limit to how long he can endure, especially when you tell a poor man to be patient. For the most part, Nigerians have been patient. In fact, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu assured Nigerians that they should sacrifice now and enjoy tomorrow. We have sacrificed. Nigerians have paid so much, especially when it comes to high cost of living. People can hardly feed in their homes. Families are disintegrating. But we get to see political figures living large, you know, making the most out of the largesse, as it were. So my question to you is, are we going to see hope in sight? Is there any hope in sight? Or is just going to be from one phase of suffering to the other? What's your take as regards this?
See, I would like to come from the angle of leadership responsibility, because we understand that leadership are the ones that make policies and they drive these policies. And the policy they make might, you know, gain positive, you know, acceptability, or at the end impact negatively on the masses. So the masses also, as the fellow speaker said, has a lot of, you know, responsibility to also play in the nationhood. So we expect the masses to, you know, hold their political leaders or whatsoever accountable, you know, demand transparency, you know, in the way and manner things are done. So having said that, when you talk about the question, you know, being asked by the referent, I believe Nigerians, you know, one of the popular musicians in Nigeria said, you know, suffering and smiling. Nigerians are a very tolerable set of people I've seen on earth. You know, you wouldn't find a situation like this in other country, and you would not expect an uprising, you know, for some times now. So I understand and I see, I feel what Nigerians are going through every day. So for Nigerians to keep, you know, participating in this democracy, the government, you know, has to also put a stop to wastages, just like you said, you know, and be people oriented, more of people oriented. You know, what we demand, for instance, now, instead of allocating fat sum of money to state government or local government, you have ministries. What is happening to all these ministries? What is happening to all these agencies? We have the agricultural ministry. Little or nothing is being heard from the ministry. We have Ministry of Power. How have they failed in provision of electricity? You know, we have other ministries scattered all over. You know, and the major infrastructural drive during Obasanjo era came from the telecommunication industry. You know, bringing in the telecommunication revolution, and that was what sparked the economy. You see, you know, people gaining jobs or activities were going on. At the end of the day, they will have what to take home that would be able to take care of their loved ones or pay bills at the end of the day. But the situation we are having today is that it is a hopeless situation where we cannot have a direct you know, follow-up of what the policies or the vision of the government is all about, and now, what we have to expect from government.
Now, the take home from what you just said now, that it's a hopeless situation. Now, my question to you, Miss Bolaji, the guest right here has alluded to the fact that it's a hopeless situation. Now, from sources, the federal government plans salary increase for Tinubu ministers, legislatures, and other public office holders. So is this a situation of putting, as they say, more salt to the injury? Did you get my question? I guess she's still struggling with network connection. Let me ask you that question. The situation is hopeless. But now we're reading, rather than seeing hope, as it were, coming from the renewed hope agenda, what we're reading from sources is that the federal government plans salary increase for Tinubu ministers, legislatures, and political office holders. So nothing for the poor.
Yeah, you know, that has been the that has been the direction, the dimension that the government always follows, you know, thinking about themselves first, even before the Nigerian citizen. So it's a very disturbing, you know, situation. The whole thing, the ball of the government policies should be geared toward making its citizens to be, you know, comfortable, you know, able to do their businesses, afford, you know, health care, feeding, and you know, have some form of relief, you know, from government. Having taken away the subsidy that were beneficiary to ordinary people, I think that subsidy reinvestment should be geared toward the people and not towards political office holders.
All right. Now we're pressed for time. So what's your parting word, Ms. Bolaji, as regards the issue of making sure that the people are well taken care of? Because that's the major reason why we have a government in place. So what's your parting word as regards this?
For me, everything rises and falls on the shoulders of leaders. And there's a book called Culture Eats Strategy for Breakfast. I always say culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There needs to be a complete change in how we do things as a people, in what leadership is. People should stop seeing government position or leadership position as a means of acquiring wealth, as a means of even storing wealth that they might not eventually use, as we have seen with the antecedents of some of the past leaders. It must be seen as a place to go there to impact people, to ask people to come together and begin to do things that common man, and Nigerians are not hard to please. That's one thing I've realized.
All right, thank you so much.
Something that will impact the life of people, it can actually make a huge difference in their lives. So
thank you so much, Ms. Bolaji Shote, for your submission. Yes, the take home from all that we've just heard is that there should be a total mind shift, both from those who occupy, you know, public offices and of course the electorate. There should be a mind shift. Thank you so much, Mr. Ubang Thompson, Public Affairs Analyst, for your perspective on the matter.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's our offering from our Lagos Network Center. We'll be moving over now to Benin Network Center for the news update. Please do stay.